My name's Timothy Boyle and I'm a filmmaker. I started off actually presenting on an old kids TV show for Channel 9 and started on a gaming show actually, so it was the show sort of looking at the old Sega Mega Drives and Super Nintendos and things like that, and found myself actually more interested in the behind the scenes rather than being a presenter, and so I got into editing. And out of there I started making music video clips for Sony and started working for doing some sort of TVCs and things for Village Roadshow. And at the ripe age of 23 decided to go off and make my first feature film. And I guess that was history, you know. My first feature film, A Big Night Out, I wrote that in 3 days. I should have taken 4, maybe 5. I was so keen to make a movie that I didn't care what I was making, and it got released. It just wasn't very good, but that's okay because I mean it was good for me because I made a film. It got released, it got panned, and rightly deserving to get panned. But I shot with film, which was nice. So at least I had that sort of. It was before the digital sort of revolution, so I had that experience of shooting a feature film on film, which was kind of nice. My follow-up movie, though, that was the nasty one. I made this film which got picked up by Lionsgate and was released everywhere around the world. And originally it was called Three the Hard Way, and it had Sam Worthington in it and Steve Bastoni and a couple of guys and the movie itself. And I don't know if you know this story, but the movie itself was it was written in sort of Tarantino-esque style, where it was non-linear. And there's a story about one group of guys who went off and got in some hijinks, and another group of guys who kept killing the wrong people, and another group of guys who were like computer hackers, and it all combined in the foyer of a bank, guns blazing, awesome battle. The screenplay played really, really well. My cut of the film played really, really well. But here's what happened. The executive producer, without telling me, took the film, and Sam Worthington became a big star at this stage, and he recut the movie in a linear fashion with more Sam Worthington in the film, even though it didn't make sense. It's just any outtake of Sam, throw it in there. And then he sold that to Channel 9, and then to another sales agent sold it to Lionsgate, and took the money and left the country. And nobody got paid. And the film that got released doesn't even make sense. And I'm sitting there going, and it's got my name all over it, and I'm sitting there going, what the hell is this? So I showed Lionsgate the director's cut of this, and they went, wow, this is actually pretty good. And I'm like, well, I'm not looking for any money to finish it. I'm happy to finish this film. I just need the master tapes. But the executive producer has lost the master tapes. And so therefore the movie just got released. I think it was called Pros and Ex-Cons or something like they called it. It got released. It makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. It's nothing like the movie that I wrote, nothing like the movie I directed, and here we are. So I then made a film after that called The Plex, which was a big FU to the guys who stole my film. And then I realised that's nice, very cathartic, but probably not the best way to make a film. You probably want to do something else. Then I got attached to The Phantom as the writer and at one stage a co-director. But that film went into turnaround, and then I came back and now I've done The Half Dead. So the first draft of The Half Dead was, I think I wrote it in about 7 days, 7-8 days. But then I kept working on it for a little while. I think the actual writing process, the time it took was probably close to about 1.5 years by the time we got to a stage. I actually put the film away. So I was working on another project. So I had written the Half Dead up to a stage, and then I started working on something else. And when that fell through, I went back to The Half Dead. For me, my process of writing is, I think about a lot of stuff. It takes me years to process what I actually want to write. But then when I actually write, I just get straight into it and sort of smash it out. For me, I guess it's about, having a very solid idea of what you want to make and what you want to see, and moving forward. When I write, I tend to imagine the trailer first, and from that point I can take key points in the trailer and say, well, I want this to happen and that to happen, that to happen, that to happen, and then I can throw that all down onto a page I can say, well, structurally, I need my characters to do this and my characters to do that, and we need to move here and do all these bits and pieces. And then I basically make my outline, my plot points. And then once I have that structure, I go for it. I go scene one, boom, let's go. And I just literally join the dots. So that's my personal, that's how I do it. But it's, I think every writer has their own process, but that's mine. The idea's been floating around in my head for a while. I guess the catalyst was after meeting somebody in Hollywood who had a big action sort of similar film come out, sort of inspired me to go off and make my own version. And so here we are, a couple of years later with that under the belt. Well, I wanted to make a film that was in the genre that I actually wanted to get into. So I'm a massive gamer and I'm a massive comic book fan. And even though that seems to be the type of films that are very prevalent now, it's something that I've always been into and I've been very sort of focused to try to get into. And it was one of those things that I kept making movies that were, they were sort of for budgets that were small. And I made comedies and I made gangster movies, but none of them were actually movies I wanted to make. They were just movies I made for the budget that I had. Whereas this time I decided I wanted to make a movie that I actually wanted to see. And I think the results are pretty good, so I'm quite happy. We didn't really have a budget for pre-production, so it was more conversations about the certain look, and then we kind of made do with what we could afford. I mean, we shot this entire film on 6-footer track and a Wally dolly. On the occasion, we had a Steadicam, but the film looks like we've spent millions and millions of dollars, and that's because we've tricked it. We've made sure the camera's always moving, it's always doing something interesting, and we have a lot of exterior shots with helicopters and stock footage that we've bought. And because the movie's set in America, so we've got all these beautiful, sort of helicopter shots across Chicago and New York, and it looks amazing. So you've got all these really, really big, epic scale-wise shots that bring us into the movie. And then we're down and we're just moving the camera around and we're doing bits and pieces. So you never feel like you're in this tiny little budget film. But we shot this entire movie with 7 people and in 6-footer track. We shot all over the place. We shot mainly, Callan Park, sort of in the Roselle area was one of the places. We shot it, we had some stuff at Parramatta. We shot down at sort of around Leichhardt. We shot at Camperdown. We actually hired out a shed in like an old car park, and we built a green screen studio in this shed. And that was all. I think we had 16 or 17 different locations that we built inside that shed. And there's, it looks amazing. It's crazy what we've done in this tiny little space. You can't just sort of go in and say, well, this is how I direct. I think, I have a process with the certain actors I've worked with before. Steve Bastoni, for example. Steve and I will go and get a coffee before the scene, and we'll sit down and we'll discuss the scene, and we'll chat about the different dialogue, and we'll chat about how I'm going to shoot it, and chat about how he's going to do things. And then we get on set, and we both know where we stand, and we have an understanding, and then we just go into it. There are other actors that, that you need to push a bit harder. There's one particular actor who I think she's great, but she sometimes needed me to be like, yell at her to fire her up to get her, really excited. And I'm not really a yelly person, but she found me kind of scary during that moment, and she fired up. She was great, and then I high-fived her, and we sort of went on to the next scene. But it varies. There was a moment in the film where it was the second shot. It was the first day that we were shooting with John Rhys Davies, and it was the second shot. So the first shot, the first setup, he let me have. He didn't say anything. He came in and did his thing. And the second setup, he sort of said, we set up the camera and we had everything sorted. He said, my boy, I think you should put the camera here, and we will come in from this side, and you shoot the whole scene from here, and then from over here. And I said, well, John, had a look around the room. I thought about it, because it's, if anyone's got a valuable idea. And I looked at him and I went, no, I like it my way. He said, jolly good. Just wanted to see what type of director you were. And from that was it. From that point, he was great. He didn't actually. John Rhys Davies has been nothing but amazing. Normally, I edit my own films, but this time I had an editor come on board, by the name of Brad Hurt. And Brad's a young guy it's his first feature film, but he's done a lot of editing. He's an AFTRS grad. And apart from being just an awesome dude, he is kind of like, as an editor and as a filmmaker, he's my head, but he's just better at it. Like, he's better at the editing and stuff like that. So I can say to him, like, make this happen. And he's like, oh mate, I'm already on it. But he'll do it like 10 times better than I could have ever done it. So like, beauty. So for me, I sat through every moment of the editing. Brad and I, and we spent months. We didn't rush through this. This wasn't like, we cut this over, I think, almost a year. And it was because we painstakingly wanted to get the best out of everything. We went through every performance, every line, kept going through which one's better, and just fine tuning. And that's why I think, people who have seen the film have just gone, oh wow, this is pretty cool. And I think it's because we've taken the time to not fuck it up. We've taken the time. So, I think it's all there. But a lot of that has to do with what Brad's done and the shaping of the film. But yeah, I'm very hands-on. I'm in the edit suite all the time for every moment of it. I think filmmaking is just problem solving. That's all it is. Because even on the bigger budgets, nothing always goes right. Things happen. I think it was Star Wars, Harrison Ford broke his foot. The whole thing got shut down. And things happen. With us, it was a daily, we had a film that we wanted to shoot in 30 days. And it blew out to 60, so it doubled our shoot ratio. No particular reason. It was just took a lot longer to, when 7 people making a film, it takes a bit longer to make a film. We had obviously financial constraints. We had, I think probably the biggest issue we had on this particular film was locations. We'd have locations pull out 45 minutes before we would arrive on set. And then we'd have to scramble. I mean, I felt like for a year and a half I was scrambling. And even now, I'm working a solid 18 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week on this particular project. And I can see the light at the end of the tunnel because the movie's there. We have a international sales agent now, and we've got a lot of interest in the film. So you kind of get to that point where you're sort of going, okay, it's all worthwhile and it all makes sense. But you were always inundated with problems, be it from the catering doesn't turn up to actors. We had one particular actor who had an audition for something that was quite prominent, and just called me 10 minutes before he was due on set and said, "Sorry, man, got to do this audition." And you're like, "Okay, great." And you look around and there's your 7 crew and 20 actors sitting there and you go, "Sorry guys, let's figure out what else we can shoot in this particular location." And when you're dealing with lack of budget, there's got to be, I think, an understanding not only from yourself but also from everybody else involved in the project. The film itself is about $3.5 million, but a lot of it was done on deferrals. The rest of the money came from my business partner and myself, and a couple of key investors. And that's it. It's just people who believed in what we're doing. Obviously theatrical would be lovely, but it really comes up to which territories and the buyers. And so we're going to AFM. We'll probably start selling it there, sell it over at the Cannes market, and sell it wherever. Get some pre-sales in. The movie won't be ready until mid to late next year. So would I like to see it go theatrical? Of course, but will it go theatrical? Sort of out of my control. I've got no problems with it going through VOD. I think digital distribution certainly, it's the way things are going. I think you can keep your distribution costs lower if you do that. You're looking at supplying. Say for example, you did something through a Netflix or something like that. You supply a master to those guys, and then they do it from there. So all of a sudden, all your costs have come right down. And a lot of people are seeing your film. There's advice that was given to me way back when I first started. I'm talking sort of like mid to early mid-90s. And it was by a lady who used to work at Fine Line Features. And she gave me some good advice, actually. She said, the most important, this is before YouTube and all that sort of happened. She said, the most important thing you can do as a filmmaker is have your movie seen. Now, since then, obviously, everybody can put up YouTube clips and you can see things go viral and you get millions of people watching things and so on and so forth. But those words are still very, very true. It's not about whether it goes theatrical. It's not about whether it goes, here or there. It's about how many people see it and if they like it. If people see it and like it, you will be able to move forward. You will have a career. And I guess that's what everybody's looking for. We're finished we're finished editing. We're in post audio at the moment. We're doing all the ADR. We're also doing the visual effects. We've got a massive amount of visual effects. And we've got a very small team doing it, but they're doing a great job. Well, I'm writing a couple of things at the moment. I'm planning on shooting another film, hopefully next year. There's some movement on a couple of projects, which are looking really good. So I'm pretty confident. I'm looking at finishing up on this film, say February 2015, and then I'm looking at getting into something else pretty soon after that. I've never been to film school, so I don't know too many people who have been to film school. That's not to discredit film school as such. I think it's important to learn. It certainly is a skill. It's certainly a craft. I think the more you do, the better you get. So, I think film school is really great for creating contacts. And, you can go to film school and you can meet editors and sound designers and then you guys can all sort of move forward together. And I think it's good for that sort of stuff. And it's also good for, just learning the process. Is it necessary? No, I don't think so. I learnt through the first film, failing at that first film, and what the failure in that first film, The Big Night Out, was that the screenplay wasn't good. And so from that point, I realised that it all comes down to writing. Now, I've had this discussion with other filmmakers who are quite successful filmmakers, and they're like, it's got nothing to do with writing, it's how we shoot it. And maybe it's because I'm a writer-director, but I think story is the most important thing. Like that's my personal opinion. I think it's important to make it look pretty. I think you need talented cinematographers and set designers and wardrobe and makeup and perfect sunsets and everything that you need. But if the story's not there, if the story's not engaging, if the characters aren't engaging, and you don't go with them, then you don't have a film. That's again my personal opinion. So I think it's the most important thing in the entire movie process is getting that screenplay right. And it seems to be the thing that most people forget. I struggled between making The Half Dead and another feature film, which I was sort of writing. And it was a pendulum. One day I was like, I'm going to do The Half Dead. The next day I was going to do this other film. Oh, no, I'm going to do The Half Dead. And it went back, for months, it went back and forth, back and forth. When I came back to Australia after the whole Phantom issue and going into turnaround, I came back to Australia. I met up with a friend of mine who said, "Look, you're just going to make another movie." He actually said, "I'll give you $10,000 if you go off and make another movie. I'll give it to you right now to get you going." And I was like, "Oh man, we're not at that stage yet." But he's just like, "Seriously." And then literally the next day, I met up with my cinematographer at the same cafe, and he said, "I've just bought a red Epic. We have to make another movie." And I said to him, "Well, what do you think?" He goes, "What about The Half Dead?" I said, "Well, the script's not right." And he goes, "Well, fix it. Make it right." I went, "All right." And 6 months later, I went, "Here it is. We got the shooting script." And he's like, "Beauty, let's go." So I had the pleasure of meeting James Cameron in Hollywood. It was at a night that was sort of honouring Sam Worthington. And I was fortunate enough to get invited, and James Cameron was kind enough to talk to me for about 20 minutes. And he said to me at the end of the conversation, he said, "Look, you seem like a good guy. I'm going to give you the advice that Walter Hill gave me." And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like Walter? First of all, I'm talking to James Cameron, and now if he's telling me the advice that Walter Hill gave him, I'm like, man, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah. And so he leans in, he says, "Don't fuck it up." And I'm like, that is the best advice I've ever got. And I know a lot of people are going, "That's stupid, that's dumb advice." I said, no, it's not. Because to me, what that meant was get it right at every level. And they actually became the mantra of The Half Dead. I would actually tell that story to everybody who worked on it. I said, this is what happened, and we're not fucking it up. We're going to get it right. And so, we've done things very differently. I mean, we've gone out there, we've shot a film, we've set the film in America. I think the idea of that and the slack that, all the flack that you get from you're an Australian, why aren't you making an Australian film? And it's like, well, because we're trying to sell the film. And for us, if we want to release the film, even if it goes to, say, direct to video on demand or what have you, it's easier to sell into that American market if it's an American film. So we made a business choice to do that, and that was an interesting choice as well. But it wasn't because we're not patriotic or we don't like Australia. There's the bigger market there. You look at I've got another friend who made a film, and they spent $18 to $20 million on the film, and it made $250,000 at the box office. It's a massive waste of money and it doesn't sell anywhere else because it's an Aussie film, and it just didn't do anything. My personal opinion is that we need to stop becoming as reliant on the funding bodies and start turning into a commercial business. So, if you make a film and it's not good and it doesn't sell, then that's on you. Whereas if you make a film and you're being funded X amount of money from the government, it doesn't sell, you go, eh. And I think the funding bodies tend to either pick the same people, which is good. I think they should be supporting filmmakers. They should be supporting talent. But you get a lot of first-time filmmakers that come up and then they'll never get the support again. So they'll go off and they'll make a film and then it doesn't go anywhere. And of course, they've got probably another 10 films they've got to do before they start getting any good at it. So, but they get dumped and then they pick up the next person and then that cycle repeats. So I don't know, I've never been funded. It's not a jaded position. I actually haven't really sort of approached anybody for funding because I just kind of go, look, I can go off and make it and do it myself, so I'm just going to do that. There's no constraints and what have you. But I mean, you don't get the benefits of the bigger budgets and things like that. So what needs to change? I just think people need to start making some quality films. Australians can make quality films. I think there's a new era of filmmakers coming through at the moment. And it's not like we all got together and went, hey, let's all just do something similar of genre. It just kind of happened, which I think is real, organically. And I think that's really a telling sign to the Australian industry when you've got myself and Shana Bess and Mark Fermi and all these guys coming out doing these sci-fi-esque American-based films shot here. I think that should be a very clear indication to the powers that be what's actually really going on, what the temperature of Australian filmmaking is and what the temperature of Australian filmmakers. I can't see it as a coincidence that we're all doing similar genres. I can't. I see it as it is a new movement of Australian film coming through. I love filmmaking. I just love it. I love the process. I don't care for the red carpets or the premieres at all. At all. I have no interest in whatsoever. If I could make movies and then have nobody see it, I'd be so happy. I wouldn't care. Because for me, it's about the writing, the shooting, the doing it. I watch it, great, we're good, move on next. So for me, the greatest part of filmmaking and the greatest part of making a feature film is making a feature film. And I love it. I would never change it. I've tried to change it. And I really wish my passion was in accounting or law. Because you can go to school and you can work for one of the big firms and you'd be like, oh man, I love legal accounting. Sort of combine the two. I love it. It's the thing that I love the most. But I don't. I'm a filmmaker, and unfortunately, there is no correct path to go. It's just kind of like you're out there and you're fighting to do your thing. And but I love it. I love the process of being creative. I love the process of being on set. I love the process of post-production. I love the process. Get out there and do it. Seriously. You guys can grab a camera pretty cheaply, and post these days, depending on what type of film you're doing, can be done pretty cheaply. So it's about content, writing something that's quality, that's worth watching. Because if it's not worth watching, then there's no point making it. So make something that you want to make sure you make it. There's no problems if you make a film. A lot of people talk about it, very few people do it. So you need to step up. You need to say, okay, this is the movie I'm going to make, and go off and make it. I think it's actions speak louder than words. Just do it.